Well, it is 6 p.m. Thank you all. Am I just not seeing John here, or is he not on yet?
He has not joined, near as I can tell. He did get his packet and acknowledged that to me, but I haven't heard anything else from him.
Okay. Well, let's get started. Before we get rolling, as has been my habit, I just want to remind everyone that this is obviously a remote meeting. It's being live streamed on a couple different platforms and will be saved on YouTube for anyone to access should they want to. And we are authorized by the governor during the state of emergency to hold this remote meeting. And I just want to remind everyone that in order to remain compliant, we will be voting by roll call. We will adjourn by roll call, and at all times as possible, try to identify ourselves just for the record and for the minutes. So with that being said, Selectman Barrows, would you read the quote of the evening?
Certainly. One day, in retrospect, the years of struggle will strike you as the most beautiful. Sigmund Freud.
Thank you very much. And David, do we have anyone joining us for Citizens Forum?
We had nothing submitted via email or on the chat. You do have a representative as an attendee for the liquor license for Lobster Pound, but they didn't communicate they wanted to be under Citizens Forum, so I assume they're just here for that.
Okay, fantastic. Well, with that being said, let's move along to the administrator's report.
Just wanted to extend thanks to both the town office staff and to the citizens for everyone's cooperation, patience, and understanding last week. It was obviously the first week we reopened to in-person transactions. We made some adjustments on the fly as we went in terms of layouts and signage, but the vast majority of citizens were cooperative, helpful, patient, however you want to describe it, and staff went through probably what I would say was the busiest week we've had during my time here in terms of people at the front counter. There was obviously pent up demand to get in and do conduct business, but overall I think it went very well, and I think that all that is due to staff and citizen cooperation. Outside of that, we're really in a bit of a holding pattern, waiting for town meeting to arrive, and obviously when we've got some items here later in the agenda about executive orders from the governor regarding motor vehicle registrations and school budgets, and that's really kind of dominated our time. We are about to go to printer with the town report, and we've got a few things outstanding, one of which is that you all have to decide who you'd like to have the town report dedicated to, if anyone. And I'd suggest you do that perhaps offline, even if it's a quote unquote illegal meeting. But outside of that, I think that's it.
Any questions for David on the administrator's report? Okay, let's move along to the upcoming meeting. Any announcements?
Board of Selectmen is scheduled to meet next on Monday, June 22nd, 6 p.m.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any upcoming community events anyone cares to share? Seeing nothing, let's move along to the meeting minutes from May 26th.
I move that the board approve the May 26, 2020 meeting minutes as presented.
I'll second.
Moved by Selectman Late, seconded by Selectman Barrows. I guess my one umbrage with the minutes is that Selectman Fishman wasn't excused, he was absent, but I'm not sure how to reflect that in the meeting minutes. So that's that. So if we could include in the meeting minutes that that is the case for last meeting and this meeting, I would appreciate that. If there's any discussion, seeing no discussion, Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes, the motion passes. Thank you very much. Moving right along to Selectmen updates. Selectman Barrows, do you have any updates for us?
Not that much. We did have a Midco Solid Waste meeting last week. Everything went great. With the new manager on board, I thought the meeting moved along quickly and well. Everything was presented good. It was a nice meeting. We had a few quirks, but everything I would say went great.
Great, fantastic. Yes, David.
I'm not a selectman, but since Dave brought up Midco Solid Waste, or a citizen inquired of me about if the corporation saw in the future going back to recycling the number 1 and 5 through 7 plastics, or 1, 3, 5 through 7. They've been hoarding it at home since the corporation stopped, and didn't know if they should fill the yellow bags with that or just continue to hoard it, hoping that they'd turn it back on at some point. I don't know if anybody has an answer. I could have called Beth, but I didn't get a chance today.
I believe that my understanding, what we decided at that time was, at the meeting, was that we left it in the manager's hands to start taking that stuff at what point in time he felt that they could do so safely with these times we're having.
I'll check with them. Sorry to hijack your meeting.
That's okay. Selectman Late, do you have any updates for us?
No, I echo exactly what David said. It was a very smooth meeting compared to the past. The last meeting that we have, it was very positive. I have no other updates at this time.
Thank you both very much. It's encouraging to hear feelings of constructiveness and positivity coming out of your meetings. I'm glad for that, for your sakes. Selectman Garrettson, what updates do you have for us?
Well, 2 weeks ago, the broadband committee met again. We're trying to meet every 2 weeks. We met with representatives from Islesboro, and they told us about their experiences starting up municipal broadband. A lot of discussion about that. I am looking at the charge for the broadband committee, and the deadline to give a recommendation to the board is June 10th. We didn't really get to meet a whole lot because of the pandemic, and so I'm wondering. I guess I would like some direction from the board as to where, if we're able to extend that deadline, and when that deadline should be.
Yeah, I'm glad you bring that up, because it was something I was going to ask you. Are we as a board, given that the deadline expires, essentially the charge expires in 2 days, and we haven't, not to make you, not to shoot the messenger, so to speak, but is the board going to expect to have an update on the charges? Would you care to speak at all on the charges that come from the board, or that has come from the board, specifically, starting with number 3, number 4? I gather that you've been exploring options of broadband, and as you all know, we have a bond issue coming up here soon, and so there's a certain amount of timing with this also.
Josh, what do you think? How much longer before you can have something to present, or or a recommendation. You obviously, this pandemic has, it's wreaked havoc with everything. So what do you think?
I mean, honestly, there were at least 2 months where, nothing happened. We had no meetings. We've met with representatives from Lincolnville Telephone and now Islesboro. And that's really the extent of what we've done so far. Our next meeting, which is on Thursday, we were going to discuss, what to present for now to the board, but we don't really have a whole lot. We're still gathering information and putting together a preliminary idea for the survey that we want to put out to the community. And so, obviously, until that bond, well, if the bond passes in July, we're going to really want to have our ducks in a row for that. But I would say we need at least a month, 2 months to really get something together that's constructive.
Is a month too narrow?
I mean, 2 months I think is more realistic.
Okay.
I'm concerned at, I guess where I'm feeling is I would prefer the board get some kind of progress, some kind of tangible progress on the specific charges, or at least a direction or a formal statement from the committee prior to the vote in a month. So I'd be willing to extend it for, another 30 days, or to, let's see, when's our next, we have the 22nd, and then what's the next meeting? The 12th? 13th, right, David?
Maybe.
The 13th, I
Yeah.
believe it's 13th, yeah.
And it's not so much a commentary on the committee specifically, but sometimes deadlines and clarity of purpose allow distractions with other conversations to fall by the wayside and focusing at the core issue. And so I wouldn't be willing at this time to just extend the deadline by 2 months. I really want to see something come to the board formally from the committee, at least within another 30 days.
Okay.
David, do we need to make a formal motion to extend the deadline for the charge for this committee?
At some point, the answer to that would be yes. I don't know if we are going to talk about July's meeting schedule. And obviously, when the board gets to the end of July after town meeting, they're going to have, appointments, reappointments, that type of thing to boards and committees. So you might want to have something in place and ready for then. If I don't know if this is, obviously Josh may be able to answer this or not, but if the board could actually maybe get some sort of progress report at the next meeting in 2 weeks, then at least you'd know where you stood and you had the potential to take some action before the committee just goes poof at the end. I think the charge says the end of the month.
Yeah, June 30th is when it's officially disbanded.
Yeah. And then you could, take some action, and we could get it on the agenda. So if people wanted to contribute to the public versus, something come out in Selectmen's update, just kind of procedurally fall into place. But that only gives the broadband committee kind of 2 weeks to come up with at least a status.
Yeah, and with all due respect to, the efforts that you've made and, considering the pandemic, absolutely, there's a great level of understanding there. However, time is of the essence for us to be able to have, as you said, our ducks in a row for when this bond issue comes up before our voters. So, okay, not to digress too much. Thank you very much for the
Okay,
update.
thank
Did
you.
you have anything else,
You're welcome.
Josh?
That's all.
Okay. And I have nothing to report, unfortunately. Our quarterly reports that are emailed to us from Northeast Mobile Health are on track as per our contract states. So as far as Lincolnville's being served, seems fine. Okay. If there's nothing else on Selectmen updates, David, do you have our renewal applicant queued up?
I will bring him over to become a panelist if everything works appropriately. Keep your fingers
Okay. And we have a renewal application from the Lobster Pound Restaurant. Who do we have joining us, David?
Barry. And he's on the screen, and I'll
Okay. Yep.
unmute him
Can
and
you hear
be
me now?
able to. Oop, he's all unmuted and ready to go.
Welcome.
Hi, folks. Thank you, Chair Dunn and Selectmen. I've at a little bit of a loss because I've never done this before, but all we're looking for is renewal of our liquor license at the Lobster Pound, and hopefully we actually see some tourists this year and we'll be able to serve some stuff.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us. It's always nice when the applicants join us, should any of the select board members have any questions on your application. And so that being said, are there any questions for Barry?
The only one I have is the one I always like to bring up every time. It says that the nearest church is 4 miles away. The nearest one is 1 mile. I think that ought to be changed.
Oh, okay. I'll take care of that.
Approximately the one up in Duck Trap is about 1 mile from you.
It's 1 mile.
Yep. Thank you, David. It's a small but important detail, and we'd hate for your license to be held up at all for a technicality. Any other questions? If there are no other questions, I'd entertain a motion.
I move that the board approve and sign the liquor license application submitted by the Lincolnville Lobster Pound.
Second.
Moved by Selectman Garrettson and seconded by Selectman Barrows. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes. Motion passes. Thank you very much for popping into our meeting.
Well, thank you. It was actually quite entertaining.
Barry, procedurally, I'll get that signed by a majority of the board and we'll mail it off to you.
All right. Thank you, David.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Selectmen.
Thank
Chair
you.
Dunn.
Thank you, Barry.
Good night. There's nothing further on that. We will move along to agenda item number 8, Lincolnville Central School Budget Approval Process and Warrant. Apologies for the information that is now sitting in your inbox. That is the latest information available to us. I don't know if everyone had a chance to digest it much. I know I didn't, but it is what it is. David, would you care to shed some illumination on the subject?
Sure. Originally, when the draft agenda went to the chair to review last Wednesday, the agenda item was to approve a special town meeting warrant for the school committee to have their annual budget meeting, which is required by statute in order to approve the budget. Sometime late in the evening of last Wednesday, executive order number 56, which was in your packet, was issued by the governor regarding elections. It has several paragraphs regarding the school budget adoption procedure that obviously came out Wednesday. So that was So before the agenda was issued, I changed the subject title because the school hadn't had a chance to digest the order, nor had legal advice from the school's attorney. So it got quickly changed to just include the warrant in your packet and the order. There were a couple of things in the order that I flagged that were on page 3 that are probably the most appropriate or most relevant to the school budget. Which says, notwithstanding anything else in law, that the school could use a referendum vote to adopt the budget for the coming year. But in order to do that, rather than having a school budget meeting, it laid out a couple of options for soliciting public comment and input. And that's under item J. The school staff, the superintendent, in conjunction with their attorney, prepared a public hearing notice, which I'm going to take a minute and pop it up on the screen. I did email this all to you, but it was late this afternoon, so you probably haven't seen it. Let me say I'm going to bring that up. There's the ballot question. Everything but what I want. Hang on a minute. Just make sure. That's the actual ballot. Oh, here's the other one right here. So they put together the public hearing notice, which the top just talks about procedurally why it's being done this way. It lists the various articles or cost centers, I believe is what they call it in school lingo, outlining their total budget of $3.6 million. I will note that the budget committee agreed with the school committee's recommendations on all of those articles. These are just the summary articles. I think they're probably straight out of the warrant. I did not get a moment to compare and contrast, but I'd be shocked and surprised if it was anything different. And then at the bottom, if I can make this thing work. The summaries, and then it talks about submitting questions or feedback, and it gives the information for the superintendent, the principal, and the school committee. The idea being with a public hearing, people could get their questions answered, and information submitted back and forth, and then it would move on to a referendum ballot. I know I'm moving quickly and jumping, that this would be need to be on the 14th of July, similar to the state's ballots and the municipal ballot regarding adoption of the municipal budget and what I'll call housekeeping articles. They're looking at 3 questions. The first being an overall budget question for their operating and their cost centers. Same numbers that you saw previously totaling. I will note for you that this is not exactly how the budget, how the ballot would look. This was a draft again that came today, and we're going to have to figure out how to get this to into a ballot format with yes, no boxes that people can actually mark in instructions to the voters. But that's kind of where we are at the moment. It does need some formatting, obviously, and needs to have the budget committee recommendations on here as well. They're on there in some instances and not in others. And things like it says school board. We don't have a school board here in Lincolnville. We have a school committee. You know, important things, but minor in the big scheme of things, I guess. And I'm not a lawyer, but I'm assuming that superintendents and lawyers can draft the necessary verbiage and we can move this whole thing forward. I'll try to answer some questions. I don't do schools, so it's hard.
Here we are. Questions for David? I mean, it's rather perfunctory at this point, isn't it, David?
It is, with the exception of the formatting, but it's important for anybody that might be tuning in or watching this later that, you know, similar to the municipal town meeting, the adoption or the consideration of the school budget is by a different process this year. I
Mhm.
will say that we have had a good charge of people that have made requests for absentee ballots, and I would anticipate that that will continue. And as soon as we get ballots finalized, we will get them out to people. We don't have the state ballots yet. We did receive our local municipal ballots, but we'd like to do that all in one mailing if we can.
And these will be counted by hand, yes?
Yeah, due to the deadlines involved, if you remember, I don't know how many weeks, 3 meetings ago, you finalized the municipal questions and warrant. We sent that off to the printer the next day. We got the proofs back. We reviewed those and sent those back, and we've actually received the ballots. There's no opportunity to get this ballot, the formatting done, get the machine programmed, and get the ballots printed and back to us. They're supposed to be available 30 days prior to the vote. So the vote being July 14th. So we're right up against it, as you can imagine.
Yep. If there's no further questions or discussions on this, I will entertain a motion which is contained within the email you received this evening.
I move that the board prepare an order to the town clerk regarding the proposed Lincolnville Central School fiscal year 2021 budget that is essentially the same as presented to us in draft from today, having no monetary amounts altered, and that if necessary, the town administrator prepare for our signatures a town meeting warrant to facilitate the referendum vote on the proposed Lincolnville Central School budget for fiscal year 2021.
Second.
Moved by Selectman Garrettson, seconded by Selectman Late. Is there discussion? Seeing no discussion, Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes, motion passes. Thank you all very much.
I would also like to note that, let me get this off the screen. The 5-town CSD is also evaluating that same executive order, and I would anticipate that they will have a remote budget meeting or public hearing, and then they're also preparing a referendum ballot, which they're intending on printing and providing to us. Been in communication with some of the school staff there and some of the other town clerks in the region, so that we're kind of trying to get all on the same page. So come election day, we'll have that as well, and those ballots will go out. And they may need the board to approve and countersign a notice of election similar to what you'd already done. And then this came out and changed the whole game. So I have not had final official. I think the 5-town CSD board is meeting later this week to cross their T's and dot their I's, and then we'll get that paperwork going too.
Okay, thank you, David. Moving along, we have an update, I guess, to the Executive Order 53A for motor vehicle registration. Would you care to elaborate, David?
Sure. If you all may recall, originally the law or executive order was written that said anybody that had a registration on a motor vehicle was automatically extended to 30 days after the state of emergency was lifted. There was a subsequent executive order issued that said basically people had till, well, I can't remember the date. But it caused a little bit of chaos because some towns weren't open, motor vehicle wasn't open. So 2 days later, that got rolled back. And then ultimately this 53A was issued, which says I'm paraphrasing, obviously, once your town office is open and you can do motor vehicle registrations, they all have to be done by July 11th or by a deadline set by the municipality, whichever is sooner. Obviously, we're now open and we can process registrations. If we're going to set a different deadline, we'd have to do some notification to the public, obviously to give people fair warning. I would think at this point, judging by the number of people that came in and registered last week, they were just waiting for us to open. And I don't think we should have too many deadlines out there that might be different in Lincolnville than it is in Belmont, than it is in Searsport. Just adds to the confusion and concern. I think we just let the executive order stand for July 11th, and that was followed up by the Secretary of State, and just run with it. But it does say the decision is yours, so it's in your lap.
Well, gentlemen, what do you think? I recommend we hold where we are now and not try to confuse things.
I agree.
Okay, excellent. So the board's going to take no action on this, and if there's nothing further on that, let's move along to agenda item number 10. And it is yet again time to engage our independent auditor to do our annual audit. And if there are questions, great. And if there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that the board authorize Laidley Dunn as chair of the board to sign the engagement letter with William H. Brewer to conduct the annual audit.
I second.
Moved by Selectman Late, seconded by Selectman Barrows. Is there discussion?
Yeah, I was just curious about everyone's opinion on the report from 2017 that was included in our packet. Have these deficiencies been addressed by the firm since then? I mean, this is it's a little while ago, so I would assume they have.
My understanding is they have been, but I can re-verify that with Bill.
Certainly that would be an element of this year's audit, surely, to close that loop. But yeah, an update would be good. Thanks for that, Josh.
Okay.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing nothing, Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes. Thank you all very much. And as David alluded to, we need to have a conversation regarding setting a public hearing date for the July 14th, 2020 referendum questions.
I'm raising my hand because I need to say there's an error in the newsletter. The public hearing has to be conducted at least 10 days prior to election day, not the 7 that's listed there. That's my mistake. Sorry. Doesn't change any of my recommendations, but wanted you to know.
Comments, thoughts on this?
So this would be a Zoom public hearing, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Okay. And then citizens would, if they had a question, would we bring them over to video, or would we just read their questions? How would that work?
Whatever the board so desires in terms of operations, we could bring them over. We could have a separate public meeting first where anybody and everybody came up on the screen. Although I think there's a practical limit to how many people can come up on the screen, and maybe like 50 or something. Everybody gets smaller and smaller. Or we can do similar like what we do with this panelist meeting.
My preference would be to do just what we've been doing. If someone has a question, we could bring them over as a panelist, hear from them, and then dismiss them and do it that way.
Would it be an option for people to submit questions ahead of time? Or would it require them coming on camera, or could they just submit a question and observe?
I think the more ways we can get public input and, hear from them, the better chances are if somebody has a question, somebody else also has a very similar question. So again, I'd probably encourage people to, submit their questions in writing in advance, and we could read those off if any were submitted. Whatever anybody's comfortable with from the public, they would have, their opportunity, whether it be in writing or coming on camera or chat, hitting the chat feature if somebody so chose to do that.
I'm wondering what the board's thoughts are on directing our town administrator to create a piece of communication to go out to the community, directing and indicating to them the ways that they can participate in this. I feel a little bit of increased pressure to make sure that we make every effort to get this information out there, given the difference in the format, and that we're not going to have that same open in-body participatory meeting. So I just curious on folks' thoughts on that.
I think that'd be a great idea if we could.
I think it would be a great idea. Get it on the Lincolnville bulletin board, possibly in local on local media, Village Soup, maybe Penn Bay Pilot. The more ways that they can communicate with us, I feel the better. It would be nice to get a good number of people to participate in this.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be great.
So the two ways we've identified are that they can join the meeting as, what's the technical term, David? Just as attendees.
Attendees, yeah.
And then should they wish to address the board, you can mediate that. And then the second way is that they could submit questions and not necessarily have to be on camera, say by a certain time, the day of participation or the day before participation. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
David, do you want a motion for that, or do you feel like you're clear enough on?
If that wasn't clear, I can rewind the digital tape and listen to it again, but I think that's pretty clear.
Okay, excellent. Is there any more conversation folks want to have about this, or if not, I'll entertain a motion to set the meeting.
I move that the board conduct a public hearing on all referendum ballot questions in accordance with the remote participation requirements of MRS Section 403A on Monday, June 22nd, 2020 at 6 p.m. and that the board's regular meeting commence immediately thereafter.
I'll second.
Moved by Selectman Late, seconded by Selectman Barrows. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes. Thank you all very much.
I would want to note for anybody that's interested, the town meeting warrant and the budget and that type of stuff is up on the town's website. It has been for a couple of weeks now, or since the board, shortly after the board approved it. From our homepage under announcements, I believe the heading is July 14th town meeting information. So that's up and available for anybody that wants to view it now. And we can have more, and we'll make sure that we extend invitations broadly between now and then.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving right along, to our annual conversation, although this year it's in July, not June, the funky meeting schedule. David, you want to?
Just trying to look ahead a little bit to July's schedule. The day after your first meeting in July, the first meeting in July is scheduled for the 13th. Town meeting is the next day, or elections are the next day. Oftentimes the day before elections, we're doing more than a few last minute preparations, and that may be additional this year due to some of the safety concerns. And my suggestion to the board would be, unless we had something emergency arise, that you just do a warrant only meeting and prove to pay the bills.
Any conversation on this? Okay.
Sounds good.
Sounds like yep. Sounds like a
Okay.
good plan.
The other part is town charter requires the newly elected or newly seated board to meet within 24 hours of the adjournment of town meeting in order to elect a chair, vice chair, and secretary. Town meeting will conclude at 8 o'clock on the 14th. Shortly thereafter, we should know who's on the board and who's not. And that gives us till 8 o'clock on the 15th for you to have a meeting. And I didn't know what your preference was for that meeting, so I made a suggestion that we do it at 6 o'clock on the 15th, remotely again, I presume.
Any thoughts or time restrictions for anyone to not hold it on the 15th at 6? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that the board hold its charter required initial meeting on Wednesday, July 15th at 6 p.m.
Second.
Moved by Selectman Barrows, seconded by Selectman Late. Is there any discussion? Seeing none. Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes,
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes. Thank you all very much.
And then I would anticipate that the board would get back to its regular meeting schedule, whether that be remotely or otherwise, on July 27th.
Okay, thank you very much, David.
Yep.
And we have the treasurers and payroll warrants to approve and sign.
I move that the board approve the treasurer's and payroll warrants.
Second.
Moved by Selectman Barrows, seconded by Selectman Garrettson. Is there any discussion? Seeing none. Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes,
Selectman Late, what's your vote?
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson, what's your vote?
Yes.
And Selectman Dunn, my vote is yes. Is there any other business? Yes, David.
I knew I was going to remember something else. Under administrators report or upcoming community events or meetings and announcements, wherever you want to stick it. On Saturday, June 20th, the Midcoast Solid Waste Corporation is going to have their annual Household Hazardous Waste Collection Day from, I believe it's noon, but it might be 12:30 till 3. There's more detail that can be found on Midcoast Solid Waste website or our website under announcements, or call here at the town office. But that's a great day to get rid of the stuff that you don't know how to get rid of appropriately at relatively minimal cost.
Thanks for that.
Yep.
Anything else from the board? Seeing nothing, I'll entertain a final motion.
I move to adjourn.
Who's
Second.
seconded? Yeah, okay. Selectman Barrows moved, Selectman Late seconded. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Selectman Barrows, what's your vote?
Yes,
Selectman Late,
Yes.
Selectman Garrettson,
Yes.
Selectman Dunn, yes. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Have Have a
Remember
wonderful,
to be thinking of your choice for town report.
yes, please. This week, if possible, send
And something.
any inspiration you may have.
Okay, sounds good.
Perfect. Good
Thank
night,
you.
all.
Good
Good
night.
night, all.